Greetings, everyone. My name is Mohammed Asfour, and I work for the World Green Building Council as the head for the Middle East and Africa regional networks. We are extremely happy to have you with us today for the third of our Africa Green Building webinar series, in which we will be discussing accessing finance for green buildings. Today's webinar, that is organized by the IFC and the World GBC's Africa Network, will focus on investment readiness steps that developers, investors, building owners, and policymakers can take to access international green finance for green buildings. On our agenda, we have three distinguished speakers. Elizabeth Chegi, Vice Chairperson for the World Green Building Council Africa Regional Network, who will be providing us with a regional perspective. We will also have Rosmir, who serves as the EDGE Global Business Development Lead at the IFC, and he'll be discussing investment readiness for green building finance in Africa. Our third distinguished speaker is Oliver Phillips, who will provide us with a practical perspective from Standard Chartered. After we conclude with our presentations, we will be opening the floor for questions and answers. So please feel free to use the question box to submit any questions you might have. Our moderator for this session will be my colleague, Elizabeth Chegi, CEO and co-founder of Web Limited, a sustainable development consultancy and the chairperson of the Kenya Green Building Society. She is also the vice chairperson of the World Green Building Council Africa Regional Network and the winner of the World Green Building Council's Award for 2019 and 2020. For the past 19 years, she has made it her mission to be part of the solution to the climate crisis, living by the motto, "What we build today will form the Africa of tomorrow." Elizabeth, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and welcome to all of you joining us today from wherever you are. I'd like to give the perspective on the regional context and the regional perspective of where we are with the Green Building Councils and also finance and accessing finance. So, just a brief introduction of the World Green Building Council, who we are, where our impact enablers are, or the way we drive change as a global network is through the following. So we have 70 Green Building Councils, plus affiliate members around the world. We have an international membership base representing over 36,000 organizations dedicated to sustainability in the built environment. The World Green Building Council advocacy is a united voice of a global network on the forefront of the international climate and sustainability policy agenda. As we know, this is the decade of action, and there's actually high-level political forum discussions going on the SDGs. Of partnerships, the World Green Building Council is proud to partner with over 60 diverse organizations committed to collaboration for our shared vision and strengthening impact opportunities. The Corporate Advisory Board has 15 industry-leading organizations collaborating to drive market leadership, innovation, and implementation. The 5 regional networks themselves, as you can see there in the corner of the map, Africa, Americas, Asia, Pacific, Europe, and the MENA region, they bring together international leadership to collaborate on regional level GBC impact. So from today, we're speaking mainly from the Africa Regional Network. We also have established GBC CEO network, CEOs of close to 40 countries committed to sharing best practice and implementing innovative business models to drive change. So diving a bit deeper into Africa, the Africa Regional Network member GBCs and affiliates, as you can see, there's a very vibrant map of Africa there. Our members are South Africa, Kenya, Mauritius, Rwanda, Tanzania, Namibia, Cameroon, Ghana, Egypt, Morocco. We have Botswana and Uganda currently going through their membership process, so they'll be on board very soon. We're also linked with teams in Democratic Republic of Congo, Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Libya, Nigeria, Senegal, Sudan, Tunisia, Zambia. I've gone through all those because if you see your country is not on the list, please get in touch with us. We'll assist you and guide you on how to set up your Green Building Council, because it'd be great to say all the countries have a Green Building Council. So why have this discussion today? Accessing finance for green buildings has remained a challenge in Africa, let alone accessing finance for building. The Africa Regional Network of the World Green Building Council aims to galvanize the growth of a green buildings finance market that can facilitate the uptake of green buildings for everyone, everywhere. With an ultimate goal to decarbonize all buildings by 2050, Africa has the greatest opportunity because we're building our cities now. We can see there from that image on the right, banks and investors, the building sector and government have the Green Building Councils in the middle to galvanize these conversations, this being one of them. So a bit deeper into the Kenya context and take a test of what's happening on the ground. On the right there, we have the Kenya Green Bond Guidelines that are published and available online at the Nairobi Securities Exchange website. So on the development side, we have a deficit of millions of residential homes and supporting commercial buildings. The first green bond was launched in Kenya on 13th January 2020, this year, at the Nairobi Securities Exchange by ACORN Holdings to develop student housing. ACORN Holdings is also a premium member of the Kenya Green Building Society. The green bond was also started trading at the London Stock Exchange on 20th January 2020. So that was a landmark element of that green bond. The National Treasury, Nairobi Securities Exchange, Kenya Bankers Association, and other partners are working on a sovereign bond, providing a strong signal of the country's commitment to a low carbon economy, help bring down the cost of capital for green projects by attracting new investors, and mobilize private capital towards sustainable development. A little bit more about the Kenyan context. So to verify how green the building will be, ACORN Holdings use the IFC Excellence in Design for Greater Efficiencies EDGE standard. You'll hear more about it from Ruzmia. IFC and KGBS, the Kenya Green Building Society, signed a memorandum of understanding in 2017 at the Africa Green Building Summit to create awareness, educate, and support the IFC EDGE rating tool in shifting the market towards measurable green building performance. The Nairobi Securities Exchange has a program called Ibuka, Growing Potential. So Ibuka means emerging. The program is designed around hosting on non-trading boards and hosting introducers. These boards are the incubator board and the accelerator board. So that means the finance sector is also looking at opportunities to grow sustainability and sustainable development. You might have seen on the news that the UK's Climate Investments LLP is also funding energy and water efficient houses in Kenya, up to $39 million for green affordable housing in Kenya. An interesting read to give you up-to-date information as of 2017 is a report done by UN Habitat. On the right-hand side, there's an image of it. It's called the Sustainable Building Finance, a practical guide to project financing in Africa. So from that report, and for the region, this is what was found out. The prevailing mortgage interest rates are as shown there. So Kenya, at the time of writing, was at around 16% for a mortgage. That mortgage rate has now been capped at 14%. And earlier this year and late last year, Absa Bank of Kenya had a discount of a mortgage rate of 11%, but we're talking about average 14%. Rwanda is around 16%, Tanzania 17%, Uganda 26%, Botswana just below 10%, Ghana has 27% approximately, Mozambique 25%, South Africa over 10%. I think with that you can see these interest rates at these levels are generally prohibitive to low and middle income buyers before we even talk about green buildings. So compare that with Strathmore University, a university in Kenya that received a soft loan at an interest rate of 4.1% from the French government through Cooperative Bank of Kenya to fund its solar energy project. So what we've seen in the region is there's funding available for specific strategic solutions for green building, energy or water, but not encompassing the full green building benefits. So here we have, I'll just go back to that. We found that the communication between the green buildings, developers, also the construction industry was very much around the benefits and the percentages, and the financial institutions were leaning more towards the SDG goals discussions. So in 2017, the World Green Building Council linked the SDGs that you can meet directly by building green. We found that communication and that relationship has grown because now we have a common benchmarking language as well using the SDG goals. So there we have the World Green Building Council strategy 2020 to 2022 with the analysis of sustainable development goals relevant to the built environment. The three impact areas there are where the World Green Building Council and the regional network will focus on. So climate action, I think we've mentioned that before. Health and well-being, core to a lot of what we're experiencing now. Resources and circularity as well. And we've linked those directly to the SDGs. So in comparison, what we have as well is we wanted to see what's happening in the Europe regional network of the World Green Building Council. In Europe, the World Green Building Council founded the EU-funded Energy Efficient Mortgages Initiative, alongside partners such as the European Mortgage Federation, European Covered Bond Council, RICS, and ACORN. This brought together a new value chain, investors, green building and energy companies, and property valuers as well, in a structured effort to align Europe's best known property loan instrument, the mortgage, with climate goals. On the right there, we have the publication out of that initiative. It's called the Energy Efficient Mortgages Action Plan, which is available from the World Green Building Council website as shown. And it's further referenced on the next slide too, where we wanted to look at what was actually achieved with this initiative. So since 2017, this initiative has set standardized building performance, financial and valuation criteria, launched a commercial pilot with over 50 major investors to apply the criteria to their mortgage businesses, used pilot feedback to identify key barriers to get new financial products to market and to scaling the market, demand and supply for these products. The initiative also has set up local hubs in a number of key markets to convene key actors, investors, building sector, energy companies, valuers, to tackle these barriers in a structured manner, establishing market development roadmaps that address the need to mature product criteria over the coming years, from low energy to fully decarbonized buildings to meet the Paris Agreement. So there I've shown also on the right-hand side, the publication that's available, creating an energy efficient mortgage for Europe. The summary out of the initiative is our call to action today. We need to align a framework in verification of green buildings. Green building rating systems used for certification, we've seen that happen across the continent. For example, IFC EDGE. Create demand through awareness raising for both owners, occupiers, and financiers. Collaborate. We must work together. Make green buildings part of every financing conversation, and contact your local Green Building Council if you need assistance on that. We also need to share lessons learned, share finance performance data, share green buildings performance data, and innovate. Back to the image we used in the beginning, green buildings are at the center of this in catalyzing uptake of green buildings. So last but not least, we need to act now. And part of the World Green Building Week coming up in September 21st to 25th, we'll be talking about action for net zero buildings for communities, for the planet, for economies. Thank you very much. I'll pass over to Rusmir to proceed with the next part of this.
Thank you so much to Elizabeth for that wonderful introduction, and congratulations again on your wonderful award. Well deserved. Elizabeth is truly one of the hardest working people in green buildings around the world, not just in Africa. So as Elizabeth mentioned, my name is Rusmir Music. I am the Global Business Development Lead for EDGE. I'm actually on our beach vacation today. So you'll see some interesting backgrounds. If you watch some of our webinars with me, I've changed the backgrounds over the past few days. We're very excited to be presenting today because we have a lot of webinar co-promoters, from commercial banks to development finance institutions, as well as the green building councils. And as you will see, this will show you that green buildings are not just the right thing to do, they are a profitable thing to do. I will show you that there is money to be made in this sector by investors, by developers, and then governments too can make profit actually through taxes and incentives as well. We have a lot to cover today, which will include several main sections. We'll take a look at the investment opportunity. We'll take a look at the business case for investors and developers, and we will hear directly from Standard Chartered on why they are embarking on investments in green buildings. We'll take a look at the definitions and illustrate that with an EDGE software demo and certification process. And we will show these through case studies of investors and developers from around the world and finish with a Q&A. Before we start, I'll introduce briefly IFC. IFC is a member of the World Bank Group, and we're focused on private sector solutions. And as Elizabeth mentioned, IFC found out many years ago that a coalition of all the stakeholders in the building sector is important for action. And so we have a 4-part program focused on investment and advisory for banks. We work directly with the building sector, the developers. We work with governments on codes and incentives, and we have all of that through the EDGE certification program. This is another way to take a look at IFC's offer. So we have some broad-based market creation efforts. This is maybe geared more toward governments. We can offer advice. And so today you're going to see a preview of the resources that we have specific to developers and investors and specific to different sectors. We know that retail and hotels is going to be very different from residential. And then finally, we are very much interested in investment. And as I mentioned, we have brought a coalition of investors, both on the commercial side and development finance institutions. And at the end of the presentation, you will see contact information for all of these places. Let me illustrate our work with a case study of South Africa. To address the housing shortage in the country, IFC invested initially just 21 million in a fund managed by International Housing Solution. This is a large equity investor in South Africa's affordable market segment, and I know that they're now expanding to other parts of Africa. IHS used EDGE to find the best solutions that will save energy and water, given the local climate and construction. As a result, they were able to minimize incremental costs. Initially, it was maybe about 2 to 6%, but now it is as little as 0.25% of the total construction costs. Many of the green measures used are centered on passive design, or other sensible measures such as low flow showers. You will see that IHS now uses edge data for their sales pitch to say that they are saving their renters 1 month of rent working with them. And I will show you that in a case study that was published in a journal. At the same time, IFC created our partnership with the Green Building Council of South Africa for technical trainings and market education, including to banks and governments. And this has inspired other developers to take action. Baldwin Properties announced that they will be certifying over 16,000 units to be built over the next few years, which is the largest edge ever registration. And this led to action by financial markets. APSA announced a partnership with Baldwin for a pilot program for Eco Home Green Mortgages investment product. So this will show you that coordinated action can absolutely get us there. IFC has helped many banks and developers, as well as governments, already launch innovative financial products for green buildings. And again, today you will see a preview. We'll talk about how to support green construction. For those interested in the residential sector, we'll talk about the green mortgages, and we will describe the process through capital markets such as green bonds and green loans, as well as some of the new products coming on the market, such as leasing and REITs. Now that we set the stage for what IFC is doing, let's dive right into understanding the green buildings market. Green buildings today are a relatively small share of global construction, but the market is expected to grow substantially. As the understanding of green construction improves and costs are lowered, the investment opportunity for green buildings represents $24.7 trillion globally. In Africa, that is at least an $800 billion investment opportunity, which is a huge market. One of the reasons for these large numbers, and they're shared in our Green Building Report, which you can access online, is that construction is not a new sector. Buildings are being built as we speak right now. All we need to do is switch them from brown to green. Builders and investors are not exploring new assets such as solar or offshore wind for the first time. All of the technical measures to make a building green exist today, and what we will show you is that they can be done at a commercial way, in a profitable way. And as you will see, our message is, if you can build it green. If you're building or investing in a building today, you can build and invest in a green building also today, not even tomorrow. And it is possible to do so using EDGE. One of the things that IFC has done is take a look at what is an international definition of a green building. IFC created EDGE in part to answer the need for a common definition of a green building that will connect investors, developers, buyers, and regulators. International green building definitions agree that a building must satisfy 3 criteria. First, a building must obtain a local or international standard of green building certification as verified by an independent party. It is not enough to self-declare that a building has met a green standard. It has to be certified by a reputable certification system. The building also needs to be at least 20% more resource efficient than a comparable baseline building in the local market, and we'll show you how EDGE solves that. Finally, in order to satisfy green finance requirements, projects must have quantified impact reporting. Notice here, we don't say that the required system is EDGE. The building can be certified by other international standards. We just happen to think at IFC that EDGE has a tremendous offer that is tailored for emerging markets and especially in Africa, and I will illustrate that with all of our case studies. What this gets you is alignment with international green finance criteria, including investor-oriented associations such as the International Capital Markets Association and the Climate Bonds Initiative, and with real estate bodies such as GRESB and disclosure platforms such as CDP. Why is this definition important? Because it helps our clients access important sources of green finance. One case study is ACORN in Kenya, which Elizabeth already mentioned. ACORN utilized a relationship that EDGE has already developed with international standard, and they realized they can launch a green bond for their portfolio of green student housing. ACORN was just recently announced as the winner of the Climate Bonds Initiative International Green Bond Pioneer Award. And the bond was launched entirely for a collection of EDGE certified properties at a tune of about 50 million USD. We can assist you in understanding this process and how you yourselves can do a similar bond. Let's see, oh, there we go. Oop. Sorry, we went one slide over. So I will show you a number of different advantages for developers, but rather than going through this slide, let's illustrate it with case studies. One of the main, let's see, I keep switching one extra. One of the main obstacles for green building adoption is the perception of high costs of green measures. But evidence across many markets suggests that the incremental cost is significantly lower than previously thought, particularly when green measures are incorporated early in the design of the building. You can see here in South Africa, IHS reports the additional cost to be about $270 per residential unit, less than 1% of capital costs. We have similar data from Vietnam, Mexico, and Indonesia. Obviously, this is residential data because we think that that's one of the hardest markets to penetrate. If developers incorporate EDGE early into your design process, you can minimize the incremental cost and you can use the EDGE savings to promote it in sales. On the commercial side, one of the great case studies is the Best Western Hotel in Nairobi. The hotel employed sensible design measures such as natural ventilation to reduce the need for cooling and added smart technology such as solar hot water collectors and LED lighting. We have published many case studies in the paper that IFC collaborated on with the International Tourism Partnership. The paper is called The Business Case for Sustainable Hotels. The paper also includes a return on investment analysis, which shows that new hotels in most countries can achieve 20% resource efficiency with less than a year payback period. We've done a very similar analysis for new hotels and showed that the operational savings have a very, very attractive payback period. The paper includes other reasons to go green in this sector, including preferences by consumers and ability to access green finance. In the retail sector, we're also seeing utility savings with certified projects, for example, in Cote d'Ivoire and Zambia, among others, including the newly certified Cosmos Shopping Center, which again used very sensible interventions such as reflective paint and skylights to reduce their energy bills. In Zambia, developed by Novare Equity Partners, the mall was implemented at a minimal additional cost, but the utility bills are expected to be reduced by over 40%. I promised I'd show you the case study from the residential sector again. And this is more data from the IHS case study in South Africa, which was published in the Housing Finance International Journal. IHS provided us with their smart meter data and showed significant savings on utility consumptions in properties that utilized EDGE over similar non-certified properties. Annual savings add up to about 1 month of rent for the residents, which they used in their sales process. Another case study that we have is from Vietnam. There, the capital house of Vietnam increased their sales 3 times over the course of 3 months. You can see that IFC helped them launch a model apartment showcase that was branded with IFC, World Bank Group logos, and the EDGE logo. Capital House then won the Financial Times Transformational Business Award in 2018 for their work with low-income and affordable housing, showing again that the green construction costs can be done at less than 1% of capital costs, but the savings can be incorporated through faster sales for the developer. Another thing that labeling through EDGE allows is for multiple investors to come together under the same financing package. WDP is a Belgian-based REIT which launched a green loan with IFC for logistics properties in Romania. This was an 750 million euros or 800 million USD financing program with IFC. And standardizing the green framework under the EDGE certificate enabled multiple investors to participate. Similarly, developers use EDGE certification to attract international customers who are looking for green credentials. Africa Logistics Properties in Kenya used EDGE for this differentiation, but also realized the predicted utility savings from green measures can be up to $200,000 a year for their warehousing. EDGE label can also be used in public-private partnerships with governments. We'll talk a little bit more about Kenya, but we will show you that IFC has mapped out all of the government incentives that exist for green buildings. Here is a case study of EcoStone in Nigeria, which is certifying 100,000 homes in Nigeria over the next several years. The program has been structured through a PPP with the local government, which provides the land and thus lowers the cost to the developer. EcoStone used EDGE to show how home buyers benefit from utility savings, and then they use that to differentiate themselves during the sales process. It is not just the developers that benefit from working with EDGE or working with green buildings. Similar advantages exist for our banking colleagues on the call. And again, let's use the case studies to illustrate these. One of the best case studies that we have is BANCOLOMBIA in Colombia. Go back one more. Realizing the business value of green construction, the bank decided to grow its building portfolio and eventually launched a $400 million investment program that was financed by 2 green bonds as well as by their own internal funds. Their green bond was oversubscribed almost 3 times. And as you will know, oversubscription of green bonds typically leads to lowering of the interest rates. The bank very generously offered an incentive for both developers and home buyers, as well as a technical assistance with education of developers and an internal EDGE expert. As a result, we can show tremendous progress in Colombia. Before IFC started with EDGE, there was only 1 certified green home property, an apartment building in Colombia. Since our work just 2 years ago, we now have 1.4 million square meters of just residential property certified in Colombia and much more in the commercial sector as well. For our investor colleagues working on mortgages, this example demonstrates the benefits of green mortgages to both banks and home buyers. Here, we're assuming that the green home can be sold for even more in costs, actually at 3%. But you saw in the previous examples that those incremental costs can be quite minimized. And so the developer is actually being able to pass on the savings to the homeowner without increasing the purchase cost of the house. But even at 3% more, if the utility savings, and we saw that from the IHS examples, are internalized, even though the bank receives more funds, you can see the monthly payment is for $425 for this more expensive green building, over $413 for a normal apartment. The cost of monthly ownership, the out-of-pocket costs for the home buyer are less. $405 in the green building example and $413 back in the brown example. So this shows that the utility savings can be quite utilized to develop a green mortgage, fully on commercial terms with no incentives. And again, we can work with the banks to help you understand how to pass that incentive, including technical assistance, to your developers and to the home buyers. Investors are also using EDGE to appeal to institutional investors. Elizabeth mentioned the Paris Agreement, which has mobilized trillions of funds in green finance, and all of those projects are looking for quality investment projects to sink their funds into. This is one example from Asia, of Asia Green. They work with mostly European pension funds, and we will be educating the African pension funds again to treat green buildings as a new asset. Asia Green is able to give their investors both financial returns, 8 to 12%, and sustainability returns through EDGE certification. And they have so far invested in 2 million meters square of green space across Asia. Another example I have for you is the ability to refinance projects using the green label. So this is an example of HSBC, which structured a green loan with Indospace, a large warehouse operator. Green loans are a sister instrument for green bonds and are a certified way for green finance mechanism. HSBC invested 130 million into Indospace for a refinance of a portfolio of EDGE certified warehouses. And this framework was audited by Cicero, a leading provider of second opinion in green finance. So we've given you a lot of case studies of why to go and why to work with green buildings, whether you're a developer or investor. So let's take a look at how exactly would you do this? What are the resources that exist to help you, as we said, have that investment readiness to achieve the green label? We think the answer is EDGE. So again, reminder is that IFC does work with and supports other certification programs, but we think that EDGE, which stands for Excellence in Design for Greater Efficiencies, has a great offer for emerging markets specifically. EDGE consists of 3 components. First, the free software helps you choose the most cost-effective ways to build green. The software is free and can be accessed from the EDGE website. Second, EDGE is an achievable green standard with a 20% resource efficiency criteria. And third, EDGE is a certification system to verify and reward green building projects through a green label. We'll show you the software in just a minute, but the reminder is that the software is fully free and it can be used for your self-assessment before you start the certification process. Today, we'll present a case study of a new project, but EDGE is available across all sectors and across buildings of all vintages. So new buildings, existing buildings, refurbishments, as well as portfolio certification across residential, hospitality, retail, offices, public buildings, and industrial buildings. EDGE has many, many more case studies besides the one I showed you on our website. Each one of those case studies has detailed information on the energy, water, and material savings achieved, as well as who the investor was and how it was promoted. This can be used, as I mentioned, for promotion, or it can be used for proof of concept. And you can see here the range from residential buildings, office buildings such as the beautiful Britam Tower in Kenya, shopping centers, hospitals, and now even airports and ports have been added to the EDGE portfolio. This is how EDGE is a little bit different from other certification systems. We focus only on 3 categories of resource efficiency: energy, water, and materials. And we have 3 ways to certify. EDGE certified projects must reach 20% in energy and water and materials. Projects that go beyond that for 40% energy get the label of EDGE Advanced. And for those who are truly ambitious, they can get the zero carbon certification. So using the 40% on-site efficiency with additional savings achieved through the purchase of renewable energy. We already have our first certified project which is in the Philippines. And again, showing with a real case study that even higher levels of green can be achieved in emerging markets. ARTHALAND was our client to achieve the first EDGE zero carbon certification, and they have since issued a green bond for about $60 million and were the first non-bank issuer of green bonds in the Philippines. This project too got tremendous international awareness. ARTHALAND was shortlisted for the Financial Times Transformational Business Awards, and we're hoping that they'll be one of the winners. 2 out of the 5 shortlisted entries were in fact EDGE entries. Projects that meet or exceed the EDGE standard can be certified for a modest fee. I mentioned that each certificate, as well as the project study, lists the percentage savings and the measures utilized to achieve that saving. EDGE certification helps to communicate benefits between investors, developers, and end users. In this way, a financial institution does not need to introduce new due diligence measures to recognize green buildings on its books. And again, this is how EDGE is different. When it comes to residential projects, each unit receives its own green certificate, which can then be used for green mortgages. Certification reduces reputational risk, as it's truly the only way to communicate value between all the stakeholders in the construction value chain. So let's take a look at exactly what that looks like for an EDGE demonstration. So if the organizer, please help me share my screen, and we'll take it from there. And you will see once the website gets started that all of the EDGE information is available from edgebuildings.com. Just technical difficulty. We're trying to get to the screen sharing. There we go. So this is our EDGE website, edgebuildings.com, and I've opened up a few of our tabs already. You can see here that under the Certified tab, you can get a lot of information. So you can find out how to get a quote, and we even have instructional demos, how to register the project and certify the project. We're actually working with a firm out of South Africa to do this. I mentioned that each project gets a case study. Those are available from the projects pages, and you can filter them. So if you need to know either by country or by typology or both, you can see the many projects that we have, including our EDGE Advanced projects, to show that many of our projects are able to go beyond 40% efficiency. Again, some great new projects coming out of Africa, including these warehouses in South Africa. This is the Cosmos project in Cote d'Ivoire. And finally here, and I'll talk about this in just a bit, under the Events tab is our training. So if you'd like to become an EDGE expert and get deeper technical training, you can sign up for our online training as well as for live stream training. They're all available here. Let me go back to the EDGE app here, and I will be demoing a project in Ghana, in Accra, in the upper middle income of the residential category. If I change this, I can get additional information. But what EDGE does for me when I select this information is it creates the baseline. And I will show that first on water. So this baseline is customized to Accra, to Ghana, for water. In Kenya, for example, if I were to do Nairobi versus Mombasa, I will get 2 different baselines because the geographical climate profile of the 2 cities is going to be very different. So EDGE has customized baselines per subsectors, residential, commercial, and others, as well as by income category. So low income housing, high income housing, or 1-star hotel to 5-star resort. And what EDGE gives you is choices. So I have to reach 20%, but I'm going to click through, and I mentioned some of those sensible measures like low flow plumbing and dual flush for water closets. And that should get me to the EDGE standard for water. You can see I've reached the 21% or 25% in water, and I've also reached some parts in energy. And that's because heating less water for showers has saved me energy. And I can see that right here. This is my hot water. It has gone from 31 to 25. And I can then play with other ways to reach 20%. So Ghana, it's very hot. I'll probably use reduced window to wall ratio. I might do external shading device. I'm noticing that I have a lot to do in lighting, so I can select those as well. So I'm choosing as a developer the best options for me to get to 20%. I have a menu of choices, and I'm choosing the things that are best used for my country. See, and just with that, remember I'm getting some boost from my water. I have reached the energy EDGE standard as well. On the material side, this is a little bit different because I have to have a floor, I have to have a roof, I have to have walls. And so you can see for this particular building, it's not a buttons for choices, they're pull down menus. And here, if I put in, let's say I'm gonna use concrete just to be simple, this is a taller building, but we do have other construction methods, including compressed earth, stone, and others, which really respond to the construction practices in Africa. I have now reached the EDGE standard across the board. This is where EDGE is different. We have that incremental cost, we have the utility cost reduction, and we can see the payback period in years. If I need to know a little bit more what all of these measures mean, I can click here on the user guide. This is a short description. And then when I click to more info, I will get other information. And for our French-speaking colleagues on the phone, the user guide has been translated into French, as is the EDGE software, as well as in Portuguese for those working out of Portuguese-speaking countries. And when I'm ready to certify, I will actually upload all of my documents here. So again, this is a very, very short preview of how EDGE works, but we have lots of other resources for you, and we have bespoke trainings for both developers and for financial institutions to help you understand how to incorporate EDGE into your process. I'll stop here, I'll stop sharing my screen, and I will turn it over to Oliver, who's going to give you a little bit more of perspective of why Standard Chartered has decided to go for green buildings investments from their side and how they plan to go forward. So you can share the screen and we'll turn it over to Oliver.
Thanks, Risma, and good afternoon, good morning to everybody. If we go back one, there we go, perfect. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here today. I think this is an extremely important topic to be talking about, as Elizabeth mentioned at the start. I want to start by just talking a little bit about Standard Chartered's sustainable finance ambitions, because I think that helps explain why green buildings are such an important area for us. And then I'll sort of close on kind of some of the things that we are looking to do and how we are hoping to kind of take forward this topic and sort of drive the financing in this space in Africa. So at Standard Chartered, we really view sustainable finance as the mix between two things. So we have this combination of do no harm and do some good. So I think this kind of should be fairly self-explanatory. On the do no harm side, we are looking to ensure that we are not sort of damaging the environment. We are kind of contributing to or not sort of detrimenting
people's livelihoods and people's communities with the financing that we're in. And we've been involved in this for a very long time. Having an ESG risk team in place since 1997 has been instrumental in managing that and ensuring that the highest environmental standards are held in all of our sort of financing activities. On the other side, on this sort of do some good side, this is where we're really looking to kind of drive positive impact with our financing. And that's where sustainable finance comes into its own. It's really about taking the things that we have been doing as a bank where possible, kind of pivoting to more environmentally friendly options. So, for example, in 2018, we announced we'd no longer finance new coal-fired power plants, and last year we actually announced that we would gradually exit or gradually restrict the amount of the percentage of earnings that our clients could derive from coal, ideally working with them to transition, but with the sort of caveat that if they weren't able to meet those criteria, unfortunately, we'd have to terminate those relationships. But on the back of that, we also said we want to be increasing the amount of renewables financing we do, recognizing that in this space, renewables are cost competitive, if not more cost effective than fossil fuel power. And this sort of rationale applies beyond that sector to many others, and green buildings is certainly one of them. I think everybody kind of can recognize the importance of building infrastructure that is designed to last, and that's one of the most powerful things about green buildings. Is these are buildings that will not only have an impact now, but will continue to have an impact in the future. And there is a significant financing gap for that. If you look at the financing gap for the UN Sustainable Development Goals, just in emerging and low-income countries, that's $2.4 trillion alone. And for green buildings in Africa, the number is estimated it's about an $800 million financing gap that needs to be met. So we are very keen to do this, and very keen to explore how we can push this as part of our sustainable finance ambitions, where we are really looking to be here for good for the world. Now, if I move to the next slide, there we go. I think the challenge around green buildings is that there are many people who are interested in doing this, but there are, like anything, there are obstacles, and there are some of these obstacles are detailed on the left. There's a perception that this is going to be more expensive. There's kind of an image that this might be for high end only and not available not available to everyone, and actually that there isn't really much of a demand for it. Obviously, one of the key things that has been an issue in the past has been kind of the lack of trained professionals to actually advise on how to make green buildings green. So it's great to see the work that Mohammed and Elizabeth are doing with the World GBC in Africa to really promote this, and of course Rizma with IFC Edge, developing a tool that makes actually making green buildings much more accessible for everybody. So this is a very important driver in this space. Now, other drivers are obviously emerging. People have realized that there is a demand for this. This is something that we've seen in the US and Europe, and are increasingly seeing in Africa and the Middle East. And interestingly, actually, the payback period for green buildings is lower in Africa and the Middle East than it is almost anywhere else in the world. We're seeing more environmental regulations come in, and on the back of that, we're seeing an interest in kind of the fact that these green buildings actually make good business sense. Sustainable finance in general makes good business sense. If you can reduce the amount of heating that you need to use, you then reduce your costs, and that can only be a good thing. So we as a bank are very keen to work with developers across the continent to understand what are the challenges that you are facing. What is it that is stopping you from actually building green? Is it a lack of sort of understanding? Is it something that we can connect you to the people who can give you the advice on how to do that? Is it a lack of financing? Do you want someone like Standard Chartered who actually has this sort of dedicated ambition to really drive this thing? And then working out, how do you translate some of these drivers that you're seeing, such as regulations? How do you translate that and leverage that to actually kind of increase your ability to build these things? So in terms of what we're actually doing, which we can go to the next slide now, we have a target which is going to really drive overall. It's going to be the overall driver for our ambitions for green buildings across the world, and particularly in Africa, and that is to provide $40 billion of project financing for sustainable infrastructure. And we want to do that between January 2020 and the end of December 2024. Now, for us, this is very important. The amount of carbon emissions that need to be reduced to meet the Paris goals is an astounding amount. Whatever metric you want to use, it's very significant. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is if we start rapidly escalating the amount of sustainable infrastructure that is put in place. So this now this target actually doesn't include the power sector. We have a separate target, as I mentioned, for renewables. But this is for building schools and health and hospitals. But we are also very keen to actually do this as green buildings. And green buildings, green office buildings, green residential buildings fall into this as well. So we're kind of looking at this in two ways. We're looking at this in how can we help our homeowners that we bank. How can we help them to actually support turning their own properties green? Many of these individuals will have houses that they want to sort of upgrade and retrofit. And we recognise that retrofitting is a significant way to meet the Paris Agreement, and actually retrofitting existing buildings to make them green is just as important as ensuring that new buildings are also built green. And we also want to work with developers, as I previously mentioned. Now, on the homeowner side, we have some very exciting things coming soon, and look forward to being able to announce them to all of you very shortly. In one market in East Africa, we are looking at developing a product that would allow our retail banking customers and some of our business banking customers, some of our smaller corporate clients, to actually purchase a range of products such as solar power, water purification tools that will then mean that their buildings are going to have a significantly reduced carbon footprint, but also in the case of the water products, actually a reduced plastic footprint, which is also something that's very, very important, and kind of something that we think should not be forgotten. Now, this product we think is going to be very useful, because one of the key things is incentivizing people to actually do this. There's a lot of interest in going green. We see that in many aspects all over the world. But interest, it cannot be the only driver. There also has to be the right incentives in place. So these new products will certainly help us to do so, and we hope that our clients are going to be as excited about them as we are. And as I said, look forward to announcing something about that very soon to everybody, and sort of really pushing the drive to make people's own properties green across Africa. Now, on the developer side, as I've already mentioned, for us, we have this target. We have this $40 billion target, and this is not we want to hit $40 billion and stop. This is we want to hit at least $40 billion. So we're very keen to kind of push past it as much as possible. So to do that, we need to be working with developers. We need to be understanding what it is that you need, as I've already mentioned. Now, we've had great conversations with Elizabeth and some of the members of the Kenyan Green Building Society. Using those to better understand actually what people on the ground want, how we can really help them. And we're very keen to do that and continue to have those conversations, because the only way that we can do this is by all working together. This is not something that will be solved by one party going off on their own. This is something that will be solved by everybody coming together and putting together a roadmap to really accelerate this. As I mentioned, we're not just looking at new buildings. While obviously, we should be striving to ensure that all new buildings that are built as green, and therefore kind of positioning ourselves in the best place for the future. But also retrofitting existing buildings is incredibly important. Now, most buildings that we have, you see they last for a very, very long time, and that's not going to change. And in fact, as buildings improve, obviously this kind of continues. So one of the most efficient ways of meeting the climate goals that all of us have is by actually looking at retrofitting existing buildings and helping them to become more green. So as a bank, we're very committed to this. We're very excited about the potential that this can have, and are always looking at innovative new ways to finance these areas and to drive this space forward. So to kind of reiterate my main message, please do not hesitate. If you are looking to develop green buildings, reach out to us, explain what it is that you're looking for, how we can help you, and together we will all be able to kind of paint Africa green and ensure that there is a more sustainable future for all of us. So with that, I will hand back over.
Thank you, Oliver. We look forward to working with you, and we'll finish the main part of the presentation in just a little bit and turn it to questions. And there have been great questions that have already come through, which I think are going to make me change a little bit of how I speak for the next part. A lot of the questions came through, what are the practical steps for us to access this green finance? And from our point of view of IFC, the banks and the funds that we collaborate with are the absolute most crucial part of that whole equation. There are many ways that developers can get funded. So there's equity that typically comes from funds. There's project finance that comes from banks on maybe longer term projects, usually in the commercial sector. And there's working capital, which is the more of their shorter term loans. We have a way to help the banks launch these as a green product for any of the different ways. The interest rates are really going to change because they're going to depend on your country of operation, and they're going to depend on your credit rating. So you as a developer, what is your history? What is going on with you? But we can help you obviously from IFC side and as other GBCs is to help you achieve the green label. But at the end of this presentation, you will see that we gave you a list of points of contact from each of the commercial banks that is co-sponsoring today's event, as well as the development finance institutions. IFC, AFDB, Shelter Afrique, CDC, and CDF, which was formerly OPIC, all are very interested in doing the finance, but our reach is small. We look for bigger projects where we can have some demonstration effects, and sometimes working with us can be a little bit more expensive because of due diligence. What we really want to do is to enable the local banks to launch these programs. We can invest in them, or we can provide advice on how they can reach you. What those banks need is the trust that there is interest. So all of the developers listening to today need to be in touch with their local banking institutions to raise their hand and say, we want to receive this finance, we are interested, can you please work with IFC and make sure that this is a product that's differentiated that exists in our market. And I'll show you a couple of different resources that we have for both banks and developers. So let's see, where's my clicker? We have a lot of resources on training for banks on investment criteria and compliance process. We're working today, as I mentioned, on education and incentives. We can show how to embed things into loan agreements, how to train experts for certification, and how to help you on impact reporting, with lots of case studies on both construction finance and green mortgages. IFC has done mapping of all of the different banks that are launching incentives to catalyze the market. And our challenge today is to any of the investors, listening in, including Standard Chartered, we hope to work with them, is to launch incentives to make it easy for developers to switch from brown to green. The incentives can be very little. It can be technical assistance, maybe a little bit of free certification, but they have gone to quite generous. So for example, ProCredit Bank in Ecuador offers a 50 basis point lower interest rates for projects, a significantly longer tenor for developers. The normal tenor is 2 years. They offer 12 years, and they also offer free technical assistance, which is great. So we'd like to see more of these being repeated. We think that for banks, it's a small investment for you, but a huge way to catalyze the market, as we saw in BANCOLOMBIA, which, as I mentioned, is already providing an incentive to both green construction and for green mortgages. For any of the banks, again, listening, the Global Climate Partnership Fund is interested in providing you with finance. They actually provide 100% coverage of the EDGE technical fees that you can then pass on to your clients, and they have a global reach. Their contact information is on the EDGE banking pages, which you can see from the bottom of this page. They are another finalist for the Financial Times Awards because, again, what they're providing and the way they're catalyzing market has truly been unprecedented with their incredible global reach. I talked a lot about green bonds, and there's been some great questions on how to go this route. So know that obviously IFC cannot help you structure the bond part of a green bond, but we can help you with the green part of the green bond. So you'll still have to go through a normal due diligence process as you would in any other case, but EDGE can help you go through the additional requirements for green bond criteria, such as use of proceeds, second opinion, allocation, and reporting. And what we offer is this huge program support as well. We have also mapped governments that are providing incentives. So from any of the government partners listening on the phone, there are many examples from Africa, such as lower permitting fees in Ghana. You can see overshot one. And in Kenya, which has made the tax interest from green bonds tax exempt. But we also have other examples that are really interesting. So for example, in India and in Peru, we have height bonus incentives. So developers are allowed to build more apartments on the same plot of land if they achieve a green label. And as you can imagine, this is a win-win for both the developer and the government. It is not that much more costly, as you saw, to achieve the green label, but the ability to sell more apartments, well compensates for the time and the effort. Interestingly enough, the government actually gets more taxes because more apartments are being sold. But one of the things that they're saving on is on all of their utilities. So sewage, electricity, and others are being reduced, even though more apartments are being built. So there's avoided costs of infrastructure. Again, all of this mapping with the case studies exists on our EDGE government pages. So if you're a government person listening in, we'd love to work with you. The progress in Kenya, and as you saw the one in Nigeria, has been great because the government is providing now free land. So the government of Kenya has made a decree that all affordable housing projects must meet the EDGE Green Building Standard. But in return, the government will provide developers with free land for affordable housing. This was a result of a lot of work and training done with Kenya Green Building Society, to whom we are eternally grateful, but it shows a model for the rest of Africa and truly for the rest of the world of what can be done to move green and affordable housing together and to make them synonymous. That's one of the things I have been saying. You can not have affordable housing without lowering the utility costs for the homeowners, because if you provide them a home and then burden them with huge utility costs, you've really not moved the needle much. Throughout it all, we have a lot of training offers. So whether you're a developer, a bank, or government, having an edge expert is best practices. These are technical advisors, and the experts can be an in-house team member or hired as an external consultant. There are various levels of technical advice possible, even through a comprehensive advisory services agreement with IFC. We have that training available for both online and live stream training. I think here you're seeing the global snapshot, but GBCSA in South Africa provides additional training as well, specific to Africa. And we partner with GBC, such as KGBS, to launch this training. Throughout this entire process, IFC will extend marketing support to you. So whether you are a bank working on projects or developer, we will make sure that we promote your investments. This is a short preview of what we have already done with our partners, which each of them has a case study of our current work. This is done, this is available through the Edge Marketing Toolkit. IFC will also connect investors and developers. In the Edge software, you can self-declare that you're looking for financing, and we will share this information with the banks that we're working with. We can, send continuous updates to let them know that you in fact are looking for financing. And as I mentioned at the end of this presentation and the materials we will share, you will see the contact info for all of these different banks. I'll skip the certification process. I'll do this very quickly, but know that these are available on our certify pages. So you can see how you can reach the certificate, both preliminary and final, as well as the zero carbon certification. And again, I'll show you a preview of the fees from our global certifiers, knowing that there's some country-specific fees, such as in South Africa, where we work on the residential sector with GBCSA. And I think I'll skip this slide too of all the different ways that Edge delivers value through the financial calculator, simplified compliance, and the association with the World Bank Group. I want to show you one resource very quickly, which is on our building resilience. So in addition to the green building tool, IFC has also launched a building resilience index. And this is a tool, same thing as Edge, it's a free tool. It's a risk assessment app for the real estate industry, which standardizes and quantifies disaster risk from both climate, earthquakes, volcanoes, and others, provides guidance to risk mitigation, and creates a disclosure system on adaptation and resilience to relevant stakeholders. This tool is currently in the pilot stages, and we're looking for folks to work with to build more case studies of how the project can be utilized. The software for the Resilience Index can be reached from resiliencindex.org, and the training as well as the promotional video are available from our launch platform, where we worked with Innovate for Climate platform to launch this training and education. So I'll end with just quick thank yous to all of our speakers today, as well as all of our donors who have made this process possible and have made the Edge software available for free. And I'll leave you with next steps. So if you are a developer, make sure that you receive technical training for staff or consultants, or hire consultants already accredited by IFC. As I mentioned today, we felt like it was just a preview of resources, and we can organize Edge workshops for you with modules for banks, developers, and governments. Make sure you utilize all of our marketing materials and our case studies for proof of concept, and find the banking incentives or government incentives, either to utilize them in your work or to serve them as an inspiration for you if you are an investor or a government to move your projects forward. I left a lot of different contact information, so you can see my presenter information. We have a huge team here in Africa, based in Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa, who can help you. I've also provided you, and I think World GBC will share this information afterwards, with the contact info for development finance institutions, green building associations, and commercial banks, and this is your first point of contact for financing. So, follow up here to either help you structure your process or to understand what your project could do. And in the end, we'll just leave you with a huge thank you to everyone. I think there's been some great questions here, so we'll have Elizabeth come back online and help moderate. We showed you a lot of information today, but we hope that this was not the last time you work with EDGE. This should be just the beginning, so that we can then deploy one-on-one resources for you and help you internalize this in your access to green finance.
Thank you very much, Rosemary. As you were speaking, we're receiving quite a lot of questions, so it shows a lot of interest in what we're discussing. And as we said before, this is just the beginning of the action. So if I start with the first question, which we received a few days ago from Mr. Mairura Mwanga, the chair of the Town and County Planners Association of Kenya. He was keen to explore opportunities for green financing in development planning of towns and counties. Oliver, if you don't mind responding to that, and then we can go to Rosemary on the same question, because I do believe you've touched on the discussion around infrastructure.
Sure, no, happy to, and I think that's a very interesting angle as well. Obviously, if you start looking at developing sort of entire communities in a green fashion, you actually can have a much greater impact. And for us, that's actually something that we are talking to quite a few developers about already. Actually, it's something that we're looking at actually incorporating green financing into the planning process, and sort of thinking about that at the start, because then you can help to actually structure your financing with that in mind for the whole way.
Thank you very much. Rosemary, if you don't mind adding to that.
From our side as well, IFC can invest in cities or municipalities. We do have our cities program. So that's one angle that we're definitely looking for. And the other development finance institutions, whether on government level or even on developers, can really help you with that. What these municipalities can do is work on the level such as the government of Kenya has done, to look into how to support the private developers to move that process. It could be free land, it could be small incentives such as shorter, lower permitting fees or shorter permitting time. There are many different things that the governments can do that don't cost them money, that moves the needle forward for green buildings. And we would love to work with you to make that possible.
Okay, thank you for that. So we also have another question from Dr. Salwa. Is it possible to develop sustainable, environmental friendly construction with the concept of smart city, green building, and social housing policy? So for the low income, and I do believe you've covered that in the case studies, that it is happening, it is there. Just a final comment on that, Rosemary, if you don't mind.
Yeah, we have done many case studies, and there's many more stories on the EDGE website of all the different projects we have been able to certify around the world, from low-income housing in Haiti, in Indonesia, in Philippines, Vietnam. I think they can be, and then obviously the tremendous work done in Kenya to move that needle forward. So please just read through, know that it's possible. It's not that much more expensive. The measures are very sensible. It's not just for the rich. I want to go on, a process where green and affordable housing must be synonymous. They cannot be separated. Absolutely.
Fantastic. And over to Oliver again. Mr. Ehikioya Henry, founder CEO of Fencas Real Estate Development Company Limited, is asking if can EDGE be used to certify community-based development? And I think you've answered that previously, where you've said you can actually work on the basis of infrastructure and looking at the whole development.
Exactly. EDGE certifies individual buildings, but it can be done on a portfolio basis. So we will look at buildings specifically, and IFC will eventually launch a whole tool that's going to look at the city planning more broadly. So they will look more at things like transportation planning and other infrastructure as well. So that, and our cities team is going to be developing that. Prashant Kapoor, who is mentioned in the contact notes, who is the inventor of EDGE, is the inventor of this new tool that can help municipalities with further planning. So we can absolutely do that for you on a one-on-one or a portfolio basis on the building side, and then we are quickly launching new tools that will look at other infrastructure beyond buildings.
Okay, so the question over to Oliver is a comment from someone who's logged in to say they were hoping to hear specific benefits offered by the banks. They say that committed and excited is unfortunately the same message they've heard for a long time from banks. And I do know we were expecting questions like this. Please do comment on that. And I hope this is also a momentum driver to have this initial webinar on these discussions.
Yeah, exactly. I think we all expected a question along those lines. It's almost inevitable. Look, and this is something that definitely, as I mentioned, it is about incentivizing as well. It's not just about kind of there being demand. So, on the sort of project-based side, I don't want to generalize. I think kind of my statement that I'd say is that when you start considering the economics for green buildings, the economics can become much more attractive if the project is designed properly, and then that will obviously improve the financing terms. Now that is very much on a case-by-case basis, but in terms of that, that is where the benefit from banks can come. Obviously, as banks do more and more green financing, and we see what's likely to happen is we're going to see either some sort of green kind of benefit or some sort of brown penalty. That seems to be where kind of a lot of consensus in the market is going to be going. That will then obviously change the way we look at financing as well, and may sort of start reflecting into the financing terms. Now, talking more specifically on the product that I was talking about that we're going to be launching very soon on the retail side, we are actually looking to offer some very significant incentives on that front, and these will be financial incentives. These will be, we're working with our partners to also have discounts on the products if they're purchased through these schemes, and also to potentially offer lower fees on this, recognizing the fact that this is something that actually we should be incentivizing to do. So hopefully that kind of puts some faith in the fact that there is more to it than just kind of committed and keen and enthusiastic.
Yes, and I think that follows up to the next question, where someone's asked, are these offers by Standard Chartered, would they be just available in Kenya or the region?
These, while we may sort of kind of offer some product market by market, as that is typically how you go, we are always looking to expand successful products into other markets. Now, in terms of our kind of green building financing, actually this is something that we want to be doing all over the world, whether that is Africa or Asia or Europe. In any of the markets which we operate in, we want to be doing more sustainable financing. So definitely not just restricted to Kenya.
Fantastic. And because the questions are still rolling in, we'll try to do short answers so we can cover as many as possible. And over to Rusmir, a note to see how we can redirect to speak on the $800 million that you mentioned in the presentation. How do the projects in Africa actually access it?
So they would be through the local investors. So we work with funds. IHS is one example, and they're expanding across South Africa. We're trying to, as I said, I think today was a huge coalition of banks that are promoting this work, from ABSA, Standard Chartered, Stanbic, which we not really have done that before. So the local financial institutions are key to this work. IFC and other, even the World Bank or other DFIs, can only do so much. Our balance sheet is constrained, but we can provide you advice. So we want to make sure that you are constantly having a drumbeat of, we want this, we need this, please, launch a financing that will help us go there. IFC will help you understand how to incorporate those commercial terms. But both the investors and the developers at some point really just have to trust us that there is money to be made in green. It is not expensive. It will sell faster. It will lead to better tenants. And we can certify you for not that much more money and really give you access around the world.
A bit of a technical question, thank you for that, from Manfred, who's in Cape Town, one of our green building movement people as well. The calculation of the 24.7 trillion investment opportunity that you showcased, how was that done?
It's actually described in our green buildings report, but the main thing is we looked at the speed of building. China is actually about to add an entire continent of Latin America in the next 10 years. You know, China poured in 10 years more concrete than the United States did in the entire last century. So the speed of urbanization in all of these emerging markets is huge. We actually looked at about 20% penetration of green buildings, and in many countries that was less if they started at less parts. So the 800 million could actually be an underdeveloped because there's actually more that can be done that way. But it's all described in the Green Buildings report. Lots of great resources there, and I encourage people to read it.
Okay, so we have someone from Nigeria, please, for those of us in Nigeria, which financiers should we approach? I think they can get in touch with you and find out who you're working with in Nigeria, especially as you have a point of contact there.
Exactly. So Temi Lola on our team, we have worked with banks. We have educated them on how to use EDGE. And then we work with other bodies such as the NMRC, which is the mortgage refinance company. So we're really trying to kind of work with the entire system. To me, it goes back to trust us that there's money to be made here and work with us, where we have resources to launch for you.
Okay, so we have a couple of questions where they say, how do I become an EDGE expert? How to become a technical expert for EDGE certification? And I can answer those on the basis that visit the edgebuildings.com website, whichever country you're in, you can see how to do that. There's training online. The exam is also online during this COVID-19 time, so we have no excuse but to become experts, and the resources are available and there's context there. So there's an interesting question here. Thank you for this impressive webinar. Why is EDGE certification not directly linked to the World Bank sponsored projects? Like every World Bank sponsored project goes for EDGE certification.
No, this is a great question. And you notice that in our definition of green buildings, it never says EDGE certified. It only says green certified. So we are very happy to work with certifications from different agencies. Sometimes the public projects cannot afford the certification, so they have an internal technical expert that does this work. That's actually how EDGE started. We had internal experts who were verifying this info, but we realized it just wasn't enough to really communicate that value to everybody. So IFC will not force you to pick EDGE. If you want to go for LEED, BREEAM, DGNB, that's great. If you can afford it, we think just EDGE is the best right-sized for emerging markets, and there's a great value in it. But we don't typically require it if the partner wants to go somewhere else. Now, other partners, CDC went up on stage at the Africa Property Investment Summit and said, if you're not green, we're not looking at you. So development finance institutions, being green is the cost of entry. We have technical assistance as an incentive. But for us, you would have to be in a very tough place to advocate that you cannot achieve a green standard because it's just the price of entry to work with development finance institutions. We're trying to convince the commercial banks really to have almost the same, because we think that we have communicated that value enough that all of these things can be internalized in a commercial way as well.
Thank you for that. And just for the last couple of minutes we have on the call, there's a mention of the majority of buildings are being constructed by everyday people, yet the incentives promise seem entry level. So it's a question towards Standard Chartered. Do you envisage expanding the offer for retail banking or private owners? We normally call them common wananchi, the day-to-day people. Would that be available?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, the product that we're hoping to launch very soon is actually for the retail banking space. This is something that will allow homeowners to make their buildings green. Now that's the first step, obviously, which is upgrading existing buildings to green. Now we are also looking at what other products we can launch across the value chain. For example, mortgages might be an area that we kind of move into next, which we can obviously allow people to kind of get more angles into that green finance for their own properties.
Thanks for that. And we've also received a statement from Absa Bank Kenya. They've said they've looked at IFC Edge, used it to self-assess all their branches across the country, and they're also available to work with those developers and clients who are ready to have discussions around green mortgages and sustainable construction funding. So as we said before, this is definitely the beginning of this discussion and this action around sustainable finance or finance for green building. So with that,
there was one question that we got on our chat. I thought was a great one. If we can, on that note, somebody had asked, what's more effective, regulations or market forces? And I'm going to use a quote by the president of the Mexico Green Building Council, who said there are 3 things you can do with green buildings. People usually think of carrots and sticks, but there's also tambourines. So sticks are okay, but we know that governments can have a hard time enforcing the regulation. The incentives and the carrots are a lot better because you reward the performance. You reward somebody who's going past that, and the certificate is the proof that the project has met the performance. What we're doing with the GBCs is the tambourines. We have to celebrate each and every one of these green projects because they have been hard won. The project studies are all over. We have them on the EDGE website and other certifications. Please look at them and let them serve as an inspiration for you. We want to, do the tambourines together to show all of this is absolutely possible, and we can work together to move it forward. So sticks, carrots, and tambourines.
Fantastic.
And I think that's I was going to add to kind of Rusmir's point, which I love the tambourine element. I've heard of sticks and carrots, but not tambourines yet. But it is so important, and one of the key benefits that we talk about when we're talking to our clients about sustainable finance, whether that is project finance, syndicated loans, bonds, or even on finance on the retail side, is that sustainable finance is all about finding a way to show the good work that you're doing. It is very much that tambourine. It is kind of drawing attention to the great work that people are doing and ensuring that others can learn from it, and that can sort of escalate, and we'll see more and more of that happening in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Oliver and Rusmir. And just as a parting shot from here as well, we did a survey, and we got developers who came back and said up to $220 million worth of property could actually go green if there's incentivized finance. So there's appetite, but what we're asking people is actually to be those tambourines and ask for that, demand for it from your banks. So with the Africa Green Building webinar series, the next one is going to be on 30th July. And the topic of that is establishing good governance in your Green Building Council. And that, if you don't have a Green Building Council, that will help you set one up. Last but not least, questions are still coming in, but we have to go offline. Please send your email questions to africa@worldgbc.org, and we'll continue answering those because we said this is the beginning, not the end. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for the team who organized this. And this is just a bit from the Africa Regional Network. There's a lot more coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.